Hello and welcome back. Happy New Year, and let's get stuck into That's Entertainment, all the interesting entertainment news that's been happening over the last few weeks now, this week. Obviously, there's been a ton of things happening both on the entertainment side of stuff with streaming, television, cinema, and distribution. A lot to get through, so we'll probably break this report down into two sections. Currently, I think what we're going to do is focus just purely on streaming today. And then sometime later this week, we'll probably release one that's about the distribution and exhibition sides of the business as well. Anyway, lots to talk about. Let's get into it. So breaking down the performance of the SVOD services over the course of last year, Netflix is still way ahead. The service now has 195 million global subscribers and added 26 million subscribers in the first half of 2020. That's almost as many as it gained over the whole of 2019. Disney is now determined to catch up their goal for somewhere between 230 and 260 million subscribers for the Disney Plus service by 2024. And rather interestingly, they've just made the big announcement about the Stars tile for alternative content within their app. Warner also has, as we've seen, massive plans for HBO Max. The rollout plan is over 2021. And the goal is to achieve somewhere between 75 and 90 million subscribers by 2025. Roughly 50 million of those will be in the US. All this positive news about potential growth is phenomenally interesting. I mean, the numbers are just beyond compare. But there are some things that are also going to impact that growth across all three of the major companies that we talked about. So kicking off with Netflix, of course, they're now losing a lot of their catalog titles. We know Netflix has been investing, billions into content production. That will most likely ramp up. Netflix, its own studio capabilities are probably going to be one of the keys to their future success. But as I said earlier, they're losing access to a lot of the shows and films that they had before because, of course, obviously everyone else now is trying to get that content back into their own platform. Diving into Disney's stock price went up to an all-time high in 2020, despite the closure of many of their theme parks and the cruises and the fact that they haven't had cinemas open for most of last year. But the studio is also committed to an $8 billion fund for their streaming content over the next few years. They have yet to report on the success of Pixar's Soul, which released on Disney Plus on Christmas Day. Warner's plans to simultaneously release on HBO Max as well as theaters is still gaining a lot of criticism across the market. The total viewing hours for Christmas Day more than tripled compared to the previous month, and nearly half of the HBO subscribers viewed the film that day. That means a lot of people tuned in on the release day of Wonder Woman. According to a Screen Engine survey, 23% of those viewing the film signed up for the subscription service in order to specifically watch it. Almost 2/3 of those new users said they will continue to subscribe. And out of those surveys, 19% of the existing HBO Max customers chose not to cancel their subscription because of Wonder Woman 1984, and presumably because of the other 2021 Warner Brothers titles that will be debuting on that platform. However, Warner's parent company AT&T saw its share values drop by almost 27% at the end of 2020. Warner Brothers has lost its traditional reputation as being the most talent-friendly studio in Hollywood, and this was primarily down to the damage that was caused by their announcement last year around Wonder Woman. Filmmakers are less willing to work with them in the future. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the studio is now engaged in negotiations with dozens of parties seeking compensation for potential loss of profit participation. Meaning all those deals that were structured around each of those films, all the kickbacks and bonuses for the various actors and acting parts, it's difficult to honor those now that the films weren't being released to cinema. It's a different model. It's a different way that we need to be looking at the success or the failure of films. And, it's going to be very, very difficult to judge what is going on across any of these releases now that everything is going to be centered around HBO Max. I mean, we'll have an indication from the theatrical side, but, we don't have no Nielsen numbers around how films are actually performing on these platforms. And I think as an industry, we're going to have to figure this one out. Now, looking at the transactional VOD market, the physical purchase of electronic titles through services like Amazon Prime and iTunes and Google Play and YouTube, plus millions of local services internationally. EST sales spiked by 14.5% in comparison to the year previous. Total transactional video on demand digital revenue went up by 24%. And that was a combined total of those renting and buying film content digitally was up by 14% to 12.9 million people. This is across the UK. We're still waiting for numbers to come through from other European markets in the US, but I think it's fair to say that as people got hungry for new content, they were prepared to pay for the digital rights to stream for rental or for purchase in all markets. And I think what we'll probably see is those numbers largely mirrored across all the territories that we just mentioned beforehand. However, subscription VOD or SVOD is clearly the winner here in terms of all digital behaviors around entertainment content. SVOD services grew by 42%, and streaming services now account for 74% of the total market share. So, to round off our show, as usual, our questions. Feel free to discuss them in the comments below, either on YouTube or on LinkedIn. Here we go. Will 2021 see a plateau in how many individual subscription services users will be prepared to pay for? Remember, we looked at research that said that the average user had 3 paid subscriptions. Will that number now go up as more paid subscription services become available? Will we now also see the push and drive for advertising or AVOD-driven models and services? Because obviously if subscription isn't there from the majority of people, if we are going to be limiting ourselves to 3 to 4 subscriptions per person or per family, advertising has to step in to make up the shortfall in revenue. And of course, as you are keenly aware, we are going to harp on about piracy. As we mentioned about the limitation on the number of subscriptions people are willing to have on average, one of the very interesting things that's popped out of the research is Disney Plus's Mandalorian was one of the most pirated TV shows of 2020. If users are unwilling to pay or unable to pay, piracy is going to skyrocket. And this idea of doing limited releases with VOD in certain markets isn't going to work because we're all online. A case in point was Wonder Woman. There were perfect pirate copies of Wonder Woman 1984 freely available to download around the internet on Christmas Day. So will titles continue to debut on certain territories, or will the studios look for an international simultaneous release? My feeling is they're going to have to do this in order to control the numbers and give the cinemas a chance in these markets, which are actually open. If this hybrid model continues, piracy is going to be a major threat to the box office revenue on top of everything else. So we'll watch that with interest. Anyway, as I mentioned, please like, subscribe, share this video. We'll be putting out something again very shortly, more to do with exhibition and distribution. At the end of this month, beginning of February, we are planning a sit down in Scandinavia between the distributors and all the VOD platforms in this market. This will be a regular series of webinars that we'll be looking to take internationally. There are so many new and interesting things that we need to discuss as an industry, and things are moving too quickly for us to take a back seat and not begin to think about investing in our futures. As I said, one of the key things that we face now is piracy. One of the key hurdles that we have in trusting the new business models is a lack of tracking data. Those are 2 huge areas we plan on tackling in our talks. That's it for this week's show. That's entertainment. Coming back to you soon. Again, Happy New Year. Looking forward to the end of the lockdown. Looking forward to getting back to business. Talk to you again soon. Bye.